Welcome to the Ultimate Bloons TD6 strategy series, where I'm going to be showing you strategies for every single tower from the Dart Monkey to the Beast Handler and every single path in between. This will show you how to diversify your setup and get better, along with seeing some stats, tips and tricks, and all of the strategies for every single one of the towers. And although that the series is geared more towards Chimps mode, this will also show you a lot of tips and tricks that apply to the standard game and will allow you to win with a new style. So today we're moving on to the Submarines with the Energizer, the Reactor, and the Submerged support for the top path of the Submarine, and let's get right into these guys. So starting off with the Submarines, as the name of this path suggests, starting out with the tier 3, the Submerged support, these guys do a lot of support. Wow, very cool. So the Submerged support pretty much only does decamo. The Reactor takes it up a notch with a better decamo, more instant, and also does some early game / mid game pierce, which is pretty cool. The Energizer does decamo, can do some ceramic cleanup. Hero XP gain is increased, and there's a global tower cooldown reduction, which is very cool. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and in Chimps mode you actually can use this in some very neat ways. We'll take a look at that later. Starting off with the stats, we have the Submerge and support. Basically, I'm going to say this now, for all these guys, you typically want to have them submerged, unless you're going to do some odd and funky reactor micro blah blah blah, which you probably aren't doing for black borders. These guys stay submerged. So that one just does decamo. The Reactor does a more instant decamo, but this time it introduces some damage, which is pretty cool. You can put these guys just around like some loops and bends, and they'll do pretty good. Very nice. The Reactor takes it up a notch again, but it doesn't really have any phenomenal damage. As you can see, these Moabs are going to go by. They're going to just walk right by. The ceramics, on the other hand, it will take it out pretty well if it has some good bends and all, but it's mostly for the buffs. Now let's take a look at the cross paths. The cross paths are really going to be affecting damage, unless it's the Submerged support. If you have a tier 3, just get 301. The 320 is not going to do anything. Actually, it makes it look angry if you really want an angry sub. Like, the whole thing just turns red. It's kind of funny. But then for the Reactor, for damage, you want the 4 or 501. That's just going to do more single target damage, but Pierce, it's going to be 4 and 520, and the 020 gives lead, which will increase things a bit. If you really need to take out those leads, that will help out. So you could see the cross path like benefits and stats for all of that, but it's pretty much the same thing for the Energizer too, except I'm just going to really make this note again. It doesn't do a crazy amount of damage. It's not like, oh, you're going to get the most damage out of this. So don't like go into this thinking that the Energizer is just going to be doing a crazy amount of damage, but it's pretty much the same thing. It's not really so much more for the Pierce at this point when it comes to Energizer, because the Energizer does have a lot of Pierce, so I don't usually just get 501 if I'm going for that. Helps with the ceramic cleanup a bit, which is nice, I guess. And on top of that, well, if you really need it to hit DDTs, you can get the 520, except it doesn't really do much. I think in this example it's off screen, but it did like 90 damage to that DDT. Not really the biggest deal in the world if you're missing out on that. But when it comes to the buffs, one thing that you can do is you can actually out buff a Reactor and will do a lot more damage. You'll see this in like races a lot. In Chimps mode, you can do it. Thing is that it's just going to kind of be obsolete in a fair amount of time, so you can do some alk priority tricks where you can like alk buff Reactor for the mid game, but then if you place another tower closer to the alk buff, it will then alk buff that tower instead, so you can swap around the alk buff around. And same thing for Energizer, but at this point, like, it really isn't worth it. This guy's not doing a crazy amount of damage. It might clean up ceramics a little bit faster, but like, that's pretty much it. I'd rather spend the money on an Arctic Wind if it was up to me. But anyways, going on to the cool part about this, the Energizer does some funky things with heroes. So you'll see a lot of hero strategies. I'm not going to cover them all, but let's take a look at these heroes. So you can use Energizer very effectively with Churchill. Pat Fusty is the next one in a pretty cool and funky way. Then Soda is the other one, Brickle, and lastly Sai. So those are all the heroes that you can use Energizer with to get the level 20 versions of them, and they go pretty crazy. Now for maps that it's good with, because it's a support, it doesn't really care too much, but if you're using it to decamo, it's just got to be able to decamo near the track. It would be kind of pointless if you decamo all the balloons at the end right as they're about to leak, and that's not not where your defense is, so just keep that in mind. It's a support tower, so it should fit in. If there's water, it will go pretty well. So now let's get into the examples with the objectives. It's just going to be looking at the decamo, early and mid game Pierce, and level 20 hero. So for the decamo, it's really simple. As far as decamo goes, you just decamo the balloons, put it near the front of the track. That's going to decamo those camo whites, and your towers that don't have camo will be able to pop it. Now for the mid and early game Pierce, you can do the same thing, but with a reactor. You just plop that thing down underneath a good curve, and it's going to do a pretty good amount of damage. It's going to help a lot out, as you can see on round 49 here. And while we're here, what do you think about that new fire animation, wall fire animation? I think it's pretty interesting. Looks all right, I guess. Anyways, here is an example of the Energizer. I'm going to be doing an example with Soda and Psy. I will be doing Energizer strategies with the other heroes that I mentioned in their respective episodes, just because I don't want to cram everything in too much. But for this map, this is actually a pretty interesting way to do it, or a pretty cool way. So Soda actually goes kind of crazy on this buff tile, which is pretty cool. She can solo up to round 30, I believe, if you use her abilities at the right time. Just one Soda on the damage tile, pretty neat. I'm just going to outbuff Soda, get that up and running. Going to grab the reactor down there. It's not going to do too much in terms of the reactor, but when we get Energizer up, we'll be getting the XP gain, and then we're going to have the level 20 Soda, and level 20 Soda will do level 20 things. Now the one thing to note is that this really only works on advanced and expert maps. You won't be getting level 20 even with Energizer bought in like round 70 at a reasonable time, and on advanced maps it's frequently cutting it a lot. Expert maps it works quite well actually, but advanced maps you really need to push an early Energizer. If you want to, in these examples I'm going to be getting Energizer around 75, which is very easy to do. You can do that just fine with like any random mid-game save up, but it's a lot more consistent if you try to find a way to push Energizer earlier if you're trying to do a black border. It is a fun black border strategy, but to do it most optimally and have the best late game possible, it might be worth it to try to find a way to get the Energizer kind of like more towards the late 60s, but that can be kind of tricky. Like right here, I'm just going to be going for this embrittlement, tax zone, all this stuff is then going to be able to push me towards the Energizer, towards more like around 75. So we're going to be saving up at least around 56 and all, and then that should get me the level 20 Soda in the late 90s. So if you want to have this kind of stuff for around 95, which is kind of frequently when the balloons get way harder, if you have your level 20 hero by then, you can just absolutely wreck everything. If you want to do that, you might need to have some cash on hand for them to like push some money into the last final upgrade, or get Energizer a lot earlier. On expert maps it's a lot more chill, and on advanced and intermediate maps you're kind of out of luck unless you get Energizer like as early as possible. Then it might work on intermediate maps, but that really isn't too like something that you'd probably do for black border. Anyways, moving on, we're just going to try to get Energizer right here. Again, sometimes around 75. This one, it was a little bit later, unfortunately, but there it is, and now we can get moving. So we're not really going to be seeing too much of an effect very early on, so sometimes the early 80s can be a little bit of a tricky spot to get around to. I went for a relentless glue just to hold things together, a balloon impact to stop some ceramics, and then I got a super brittle to go with that tax zone. It's going to help the tax zone and Soda very well. And while all of this is going on, Soda's creeping closer to level 20. So with the level 20 Soda, you'll just get a lot more power, a lot more power from the last levels that you missed out if you didn't go for level 20, and also you're going to get a much better sword charge ability that wraps around 3 times at full damage, which is pretty cool. One thing to note is that Soda's like not going to use her main attack when that happens, so around 98 there, use it at a good time, kind of late as possible. It will wrap around, clean up everything, and then with Energizer you can get first strike and make round 100 easy. Typically you can pull off the first strike 2 times very easily, because it does give half cooldowns to the water monkeys in range, and then 20% cooldown to everything else, which will make things nice and easy. Now let's go for another advanced map, and we're going to be going for Psy level 20 this time. Unlike Soda, as you'll get more benefits as you get higher up, Psy, you don't really get your benefits until it reaches level 20 exactly, so it's going to be a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to try to get the Energizer a bit earlier here. I do that, but I still won't get level 20 until around, I think, is it 97 or 96 in this example? I'm not sure exactly, but otherwise it's pretty late. So you're going to be pretty much using this as just like a nuke for 98, 99, and 100 if you're doing Psy. Other than that, you can use it just because it's a really fun thing to do. I love using Psy Energizer, same as Churchill Energizer. We'll definitely see that when the Churchill episode comes out. But I'm just going to be going for that reactor. I'm going to get that reactor, of course, because I need Energizer. I'm going to be getting a carrier flagship, and it's time to push to the Energizer. I have to end up using my Psy abilities a lot in order to make this save up work, like right there on round 42, but we're going to get it, and so I just go for the carrier flagship, and then the save up for the reactor. It definitely is a lot more tricky, though, so yeah. It's a fun strategy, but a little harder to use. I think it definitely shines a lot better in challenges, like not when you're doing a black border, because it really allows you to go like straight for that Energizer, and then you can kind of get away with like doing nothing in the late game at all, because you have a super powerful level 20 hero just melting absolutely everything in the late game. Very fun, very cool. But if you used it in a black border, actually let me know, because I'd be pretty interested. And like, which hero did you do it with? I think I've done like a few black borders with this strategy, not really a whole lot though. Again, as I said, I typically love like using it more for challenges and stuff, but if you're using an Energizer in Chimps, this is how you would do it. And when it comes to like the cooldowns, you wouldn't really ever get, I don't think I mentioned this at all before in like the rest of this video, but you wouldn't really get an Energizer for the 20% cooldown reduction. If you're using like a ton of ability based strategies, it's typically just better to spend like that $40,000 on just like stall towers that would stall out some parts of the round so you can get your abilities back, or just stall at the end of the round with like a main mob to get your ability back. That's just way better of spending your money. I guess when it does come to cooldowns, like if you're using it with Pat Fusty, the whole Pat Fusty Energizer strategy is that you just get like constant roar, like nearly 100% roar uptime, which is kind of crazy. And you can use this with a Smail and get like crazy Smail uptime too, but other than that, not really. Anyways, going back to the Siren, I got a super glue. We're kind of holding these guys out until we can get level 20, especially on round 95. Like, we're coming up to 95 and I don't even have level 19 yet, which is concerning. So we can get the super glue, spam those abilities. I can use the scream whenever I want. I get the scream back a lot, so like 96, scream, all that stuff. And I'm holding some money too, so I can buy level 20 there. 97's gone, 98's gone. When you have Psy though, you don't want to scream when all around 98's on screen. You want to scream like a bit after the ZOMGs come out, or else you won't have the scream ability back for 99. So as you can see there, I screamed a little bit before everything was out, and then that gave me scream back for 99. Screamed all that, DDT's gone. First strike, we can first strike it up too.
Thanks for watching. If you want to help out the channel, you can check out these new videos, like and subscribe for more content, support the channel by becoming a member, and joining the Discord to chat with the community. Bye!